All right, it is just about 2 minutes after the hour, so let's get started. First of all, thanks everyone for joining this webinar. We're really excited to turn this over soon to our friends at Chalice Custom Algorithms. As the name might suggest, they do build custom algos, and we are one of the only platforms that supports deploying a custom algorithm in any format or language on our bidder platform. So it's a really great partnership, and they've been doing some exciting things. Just a little bit of housekeeping. I'm Paul Connecton. I am the, I guess you could say, former CMO of Beeswax, as we are now part of Freewheel, where I now work. So, Freewheel has been and continues to be in industry leaders in advanced CTV. I think that'll be a really welcome topic here today with this webinar, as we all are consuming so much more streaming content. The topic of this webinar talks about how to make the most out of that. We will be coming at you pretty soon with an updated roadmap and plan, as we are now part of Freewheel. So keep an eye on your inbox for an invite to that. There's a lot of exciting developments that we're looking forward to telling you about the road ahead, and what the integration looks like, and what the great features are that we're going to be building, and most importantly, what stuff you're going to be able to do that you couldn't do before. I think that's one of the most important things, as we remain true to our vision of interoperability and being the most flexible, transparent platform out there. So if you want to ask questions, we love questions. Use the Q&A feature, please. It's at the bottom of your screen. You can do it through chat. I just might get to it a little bit later. I'm going to stop talking soon, because the real stars of the show are Chalice. And we have with us today two of the co-founders. That's Ali Manning and Adam Heimlich. So if you could turn on your cameras and turn off your mute, that would be great. And I will be back at the end of this to moderate the Q&A. So send the questions whenever you have them. No question too complex or too simple. And we've got plenty of time today. So without any further ado, Ali, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks so much for hosting us. We are really proud of our work with Beeswax, and we're really excited to talk about connected TV as white space for solving brand lift. It has been a hard year for everyone, and in our industry in particular, there's been a lot of doom and gloom related to news about cookies. But connected TV is an exciting bright spot, because it's not impacted by those changes, and it's also the fastest growing part of advertising overall. So we're going to talk about connected TV and how to merge it with real-time optimization of brand lift. We're going to do that in context of our work with the Biden-Harris and John Ossoff campaigns. So Beeswax and its new parent company, Comcast, cannot endorse any candidates, but at Chalice, we can say that we're really proud of this work and just felt honored to be part of helping out on these efforts. So first, a quick intro. So we're Chalice. I'm Ali. After a long stint in big tech, I'm excited to be part of the democratization of AI. What that really means is bringing machine learning and the power of it back into the hands of advertisers for their own business goals. I will pass it over to Adam.
Hi, I'm Adam, the CEO of Chalice. I had a long career serving big advertisers from the agency and consulting side. Around 2019, came to the realization that most big advertisers knew, either empirically or sometimes intuitively, that they would get better results if ad delivery was tuned to their choice of outcomes and trained on their particular specific data, and that they weren't doing it only because they didn't have the facility to connect all their data sources, do the data science on it, and deliver it back as instructions for a bidder. So we made Chalice to make that easier. You can think of it as an optimization platform that will merge the data sets from your bidder and your measurement sources and any monitoring sources that are important, model to your choice of outcomes, and deliver that back to your choice of bidders for activation. Ken is on the line, will join us for Q&A. He is a PhD economist, has been also in ad tech for 20 years, and he is the algorithm craftsman.
Otherwise known as our chief data scientist.
Sorry.
No worries. So Chalice rewrites the rules of ad delivery to serve a brand's business goals. Advertising algorithms are simply rule decision sets to decide what ad gets in front of what consumer at what price. And it's now possible to write all of those decision sets according to what a brand has as its goal. So what this looks like is custom algorithms. That's the category we're in, what our technology provides. What that looks like is ripping out metrics like last touch conversions, video completion rate, clicks and visits, common denominator metrics that platform algorithms need in order to serve their thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of advertisers all at once with an optimization platform. But it's now possible with partners like Beeswax and most DSPs where you can replace those proxy metrics with real business outcomes. So I've never heard a CEO get on an earnings call and say, we lifted market share by a full point because of our stellar video completion rates, right? What drive brands' bottom lines are metrics like what's on the right. So incremental lift, customer value, not serving, not being biased in advertising, brand equity metrics, lift, persuasion, and sentiment, customer relationship metrics, new customer acquisition, winning back old customers, and retaining those a brand has. These are all now outcomes that you can point machine learning ad delivery directly at versus trying to do manually. Okay. So in the case of the Biden-Harris and Ossoff campaigns, we deployed persuasion algorithms, persuading people to get out and vote. So we saw really strong lifts in both of these campaigns. And I want to note that the audience we were targeting was not a hyper-targeted voter file audience, which usually happens in digital marketing. The campaigns came to us specifically to find new audiences to lift an intent to vote. And so these lifts are really impressive given that broad target. I would also say in our early days of Chalice, we heard a lot of advertisers sort of push back on us as like, yeah, you talk about all of these factors for ad lift, but does it really drive much change? Does it matter? And our answer is definitively from this work and others, yes. And in many cases, it matters a lot, especially when the stakes are high and the margins are thin. So if you don't take away anything else, it's that this stuff matters. Okay, so a typical connected TV or video campaign sort of looks like this. You set all of the parameters ahead of time, the plan ahead of time, you launch it, and then maybe there's a bit of optimization to cost, but things are relatively flat. They can look like this. So this is the Ossoff campaign once we launched a lift algorithm. And the reason that this happened is we were out in market with exactly what we were looking for to drive lift. So once we'd run some baseline media, we knew what would drive lift. We launched an algorithm pointed at that lift. We saw double the unique reach. And another piece of our algorithm is finding the best cost for high quality inventory. And so that's what you see happening on cost per viewable second. So I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know that connected TV is very hot right now, hence the Beeswax freewheel connection, and that it is the driver of ad growth over the next years, if not decade. So budgets in connected TV are expected to double within the next 4 years to $18 billion. But what's more exciting for brand marketers is that there's a massive opportunity there to persuade people and persuade them with real-time brand lift. It's also primed for optimization. As we said, it's not impacted by cookie changes. The inventory and ad exposures are already of higher quality, and it has reach into young audiences, which have been particularly harder to find. What's really magical right now is you can bring connected TV and brand measurement together. So that's what we're going to talk about. So all good brand and political campaigns start with ads that are proven to lift the persuadable audience. So the ads are focus group tested to drive lift. And in this case, you're looking at a frame from the Biden-Harris ad. What focus group information told the campaigns was that there are young Democratic-leaning voters who weren't motivated to vote for Biden and Harris, but when they saw their messages around social justice and climate change would become motivated to vote. So the strategy became to go find these would-be voters out in the world, just like they found in focus groups. The issue is you're looking at the people who the ads got served to. So what happens is standard video algorithms are trying to find people most likely to watch the ad, and that puts the ads in front of people who don't need any persuading. They are already voting for Biden. They don't need an ad to change their minds. So that's because the algorithms are rewarded on things like completing the video, commenting, clicking, sharing, and liking, all things that politically engaged people do and politically unengaged people don't do. The persuadable audience really doesn't want to see political ads at all. They're not likely to watch a political ad, but if they do, they would be persuaded. And this is a challenge for any brand who has a following. It's not just limited to brand lift, right? It also is about incremental sales. So every brand knows this, right? There's a set of customers who are going to come back to this brand again and again because they are loyalists, they love the category. And so, so a lot of times brands do things like, lop off this audience, exclude it. But that's limited, right? It's not always clear that someone is a Marvel superhero fan out in the world of targeting. But also, say, take a Marvel movie, you might need to reach that superfan audience just with one light touch ad impression to remind them of the release date. So anyhow, we get very, very much smarter about this audience targeting. Okay, the other issue with video completion rates is that they can, as a metric, is they can make a very wrong segment look right. These are my adorable children watching nursery rhymes and getting their, I am not exaggerating, 40th Raymore and Flanagan ad. They look like great targets for Raymore and Flanagan ads because they never skip them, but they are not in market for mid-market furniture, nor is their mother, and they get very confused about what kind of nursery rhyme this ad is. All this is to say is ads get served to the wrong people, resulting in low lift. And this is a problem with the ad algorithms that are serving ads, the logic that's built into them. So you can rewrite that logic to point to something that you care about, right? So if you reward an algorithm with something like when it lifts intent to vote, it's gonna go find everyone who it can lift intent to vote for and put ads in front of them. It's not going to put ads in front of people who aren't impacted by an ad because they're already voting, or aren't impacted by an ad because no matter what you say, they're not changing their mind. The way we do this is train our models on daily survey feedback. We model everyone twice, once under a model of their propensity to vote if they are exposed to an ad, and their propensity to vote if they are not exposed to an ad. And this gives us a persuasion score for every, eventually for every user as we reach statistical significance. For these campaigns, we partnered with Upwave, who's been a pioneer in this methodology, and we're really proud to have them as a partner as well. So, but what Upwave did was serve us daily scoring of users' propensity to vote if they were exposed to an ad and unexposed, which is that persuasion score. And this kind of modeling leads to audience discovery every time. We believe strongly that brands should have audience insights for every campaign that they run. True audience insights, not silly audience insights like, oh, your audience index is higher for soccer fans. No. We believe brands should know exactly who they're reaching and what the lift is by audience segment, as you can see here with an early cut of audience data for the Biden campaign. This surfaces game-changing audience insights. So what you're looking at is two audience insights that became stories after the election that we saw a couple weeks ahead of the election. So for Biden, we saw that the ad you saw earlier, a very hip hop themed ad, actually did best at lifting intent to vote with Southern suburban white women. And so this was really surprising. That's not what they had found in their focus group for this ad in particular, but it worked really well for that audience. And so by building that into our audience optimization, we took what was already a really impressive lift on the exposed audience and increased that by 5 points. On the Ossoff campaign, we actually saw lift with people who had not voted in the general election. So this is really surprising because after the 2020 election, as probably all of you know, it was highly contested, huge get out the vote efforts. And so to think that there were still voters who had been left behind in the general election, but would vote in the runoff was very surprising. And if you look at it, that the control and exposed are low, much lower than the overall campaign, but this was actually a big audience of people. And just this small lift in this segment actually made a huge difference. So when this all gets to the user level, it gets very exciting because you can actually look at combinations of audiences, right? So you don't just say, how much do I bid for females and males, and how much do I bid for 18 to 25 versus 25 to 40-year-olds? You can say, what is the predicted lift of an urban female who is 18 to 25, and what do I bid for her, versus what is the predicted lift of a suburban female, 18 to 25, and what do I bid for her? And so that gets incredibly exciting. But as you can see, those combinations proliferate very fast, which is why it's important that a machine learning take over, right? A human creating hundreds of line items, manually optimizing bids on daily reports. It's just not something a human can do, right? It needs to be done by machine learning. And so that's what we build, is an autopilot pointed in the right direction for media buyers. But there's other exciting stuff that I'm going to let Adam take you through.
All right, so we did the audience piece a lot, and it's first, and it's the exciting part, and it's conventional in digital media optimization to focus there on, we would call modeling on the user, right? That's the way Facebook works. That's the way most of Google's platform works. That's the way a lot of standard DSP algorithm works. But I'm a programmatic guy, and I think any other programmatic people on the call will know there's also a lot of optimization to be gained on the supply side, right? So this is modeling on the publishers and the exposure quality and factors like frequency, and they matter a lot. So while there have been other custom algorithm companies, and there are many active now, one thing that differentiates Chalice is we do both. And when we say algorithm, there's going to be a user algorithm and a supply algorithm working together, because that's how we feel you really max lift. So I'll talk about the supply factors. Now, chronologically, they come first, right? You need, because we only train on the advertiser's data, per advertiser one at a time, we have to wait for user data to come in and reach statistical significance. But supply data, it gets significant from the first day. And because I have a lot of experience in incrementality and lift, we built Chalice anticipating the supply needs for driving lift, which are different than the supply needs for just driving low CPA in a standard algorithm, right? For one thing, viewability and everything else that has to do with attention is going to matter much more. You don't drive lift if the ads aren't seen, if they're not fairly big, right? A lot of video runs on, might run on phones, right? Even if you make a CTV deal, the user might be streaming that CTV on a phone. So it's really important to get feedback on the screen size relative to the viewport, how long it's in view, how big, on what site, right? And the context and the page position, right? All these things matter. And as Ali was showing with user, become really a good job for a machine because they matter and they always appear in combination, and no human can remember all the different combinations and what to pay for them. So here's an illustration of lift by supply signal, right? It's the machine figuring out essentially a cost value ratio for every set of supply factors. So it knows what to bid for its money. So in the chart Ali showed, where viewable seconds, cost per viewable second improves dramatically all at once, that's because the model is figuring out where there is sort of undervalued supply, right? A lot of quality, a lot of seconds, or a lot of size for the money, and starts to zoom in on those signals to get the most quality for the money. And then a close look at frequency. So one of the happy stories about these campaigns and why the lift just really went through the roof is that they took less frequency than anyone would have guessed, right? When these ads worked, they worked in 2 ads in the case of Biden and about 10 viewable seconds in the case of Ossoff. So that's much lower than anyone would have guessed. And it becomes a fairly easy job to cap at that level and just massively spike the reach, right? Once we knew that we were reaching young people who hadn't voted in November for 10 viewable seconds on Ossoff, we pretty much reached them all with their 10 viewable seconds, right? And that would have been a crazy plan to go out with. But because we had that feedback and we were live in the campaign, the last few days became something that we never would have planned for in advance, that we're confident was very, very effective. So there's also scenarios where you need more frequency than you thought, or some audience segments that need more frequency than you expected, and we have solutions for that as well. We're one of the few companies that can help you get frequency up. We'll also take recency into consideration, right? The amount that lift decays or not over time. And a really big deal for CTV is pervasiveness. I think everyone has the experience that some people are very heavy streamers and some people use CTV much less. So if you're actually trying to lift the whole pool, it's really important to know this. If you're seeing someone that looks like a good opportunity, are you going to never see them again, or are you going to see them again 100 times, right? So bringing that knowledge into our predictions improves our ability to lift an entire pool. Help you lift an entire pool, I should say. So combining models to maximize lift, the audience or user model, as Ali went through, the supply model I just showed you, and then really complicated questions of exposure that only a machine can handle, right? Is it better to move an A+ user on B+ supply from 3 to 4, or some other user on some other supply from 1 to 2, right? All those things are best coded in an algorithm. They can be shown, exposed in the campaign as food for thought, but the actual activity of buying against those and driving lift is a good task for machine learning. So you can wrap it up, Ali.
Sure. So as we said, we're in a magic moment where connected TV and brand measurement can come together to do really exciting stuff in ad tech. It's a big bright spot. The key is taking ad delivery algorithms and pointing them to the right outcomes. We call this taking an autopilot that's pointed in the wrong direction and pointing it in the right direction for your teams. And this unlocks audience discovery, which is very important for brands. It also unlocks other interesting things like supply and exposure value, but really delivers what brands need, which is a true gauge of lift. We usually welcome that brands have a third-party measurement study, the traditional way of measuring things that they do post-campaign, and they see the results. And what we say is that by doing this real-time optimization to the goal the whole way through, those results are going to be much better with the final outcome. Okay, so with that, we're going to open it up to Q&A. So I'll hand it over to Paul.
Thank you. That was really helpful. Interesting. You know, I don't know very much about how these algorithms work, but it seems like that's been a major growth surface for programmatic, is really drilling down to what makes the most sense for your brand, the outcomes you're trying to drive. So folks, if you want to ask questions, go ahead, use the Q&A feature, and we'll start that now. The first question is, why did you choose Beeswax to, I swear this is real, why did you choose Beeswax to run, to build algorithms for? How does that differ from deploying algorithms on other platforms?
Yeah, I'll take it. Even though Beeswax is hosting us, even when they're not around, we say great things about them. So we are a tech agnostic platform, and Beeswax is our house tech. So since Beeswax is the DSP we license, that's what I mean by house tech. But our process and our platform are the same for some DSPs that compete with Beeswax. That said, we chose Beeswax as our house tech because of its flexibility. The development of their bid model capability is a bit further ahead of some others. It's extremely flexible, as I said, and what's the other factor?
The price. The price.
Oh yeah, it's cost effective. So it makes it a proposition for people who want to launch quickly without a lot of, right? So both these campaigns told us to launch immediately. So it was going to be a question of what's quick, easy, and cheap.
But we can deploy our algorithms in Trade Desk, Google DV360, all which have different offerings.
Great. Okay, second question. How flexible are these algorithms? For instance, if I determine that the KPI I'm driving to isn't the right one after all, how easy is it to rework the entire thing, or is it something where you have to start from scratch?
Ken?
Yeah, that's for Ken.
So I assume people can hear me.
Yeah.
Hang on. There's not much to look at. So the short version is, if you have the KPIs historically, then we can re-optimize to that, right? The challenge, of course, is that as we've done optimization, we've biased the sample, but usually we run a control group, right? Those, let's say 10 or 20% of the campaign that is unoptimized, and so depending on the situation, we can often just pivot to that or pivot to kind of data early on in the campaign, and then start optimizing to the new KPI.
All right.
We're looking at your keyboard.
That's a lovely keyboard. I like the split thing.
Still the bottom half.
There you go.
Yeah, Ken.
Nice. So I knew this one would come up, and if it didn't, I was going to ask it. But are you doing any work to build algorithms to enable frequency management in a cookieless world?
Yeah. So the answer is yes. And I guess the shortest way to describe it is it will require publisher or exchange support. So we're very excited that programmatic has made log level data available. We think District M will be a fast follower. Something will probably come out of the Freewheel Beeswax merger. I'll call it a merger. So that's how it's going to work, right? That data is going to live on the publisher side, and the ability to combine it across publishers to get across exchange level or multi-exchange level frequency, that's in question. But if you want to test with a marketplace, right, just buying CTV on Freewheel through Beeswax is one good proposition, right? Then we could take the data from the pub side, right, their measurement of frequency, and marry it up with your buy side logs.
Yeah, it's not an algorithm problem. It's really a data problem. And as Adam said, we expect to get that data from publishers or syndicates of publishers.
Great. Yeah, and I mean, frequency capping from a consumer standpoint, I think it's been understated how important that is. I think we all hate having to watch the same, mattress ad on Hulu over and over and over and over again, and just being able to fine tune that the way you've done with these campaigns that you outlined for us in the case study, I think is huge, to improving the consumer experience of ads, and obviously that generates lift. Next question. Are there any particular verticals where Chalice is uniquely positioned to succeed? I suppose other than political, where you've already shown us your, what you can do.
Yeah, so clients in CPG and entertainment get very excited with our political case study for reasons of being able to drive lift and gauge that in real time. I think those categories are very interested in getting actionable insight mid-campaign versus waiting for a measurement study to happen after the fact. So that's been really exciting for them. We also, so all of what we've shown you today around Brand Lift works really well for incremental lift or driving lift in customer lifetime value. So we see a lot of work actually in D2C, direct to consumer and e-com businesses, and finance and telecom. Finance in particular is interesting because debiasing is very important, as well as auditing and compliance of their ad algorithms. And so at some point, we think all finance companies will need to go custom because most platforms aren't going to let the government audit their algorithms.
Right. Well, thank you guys so much. That's all the questions we have. It's been a great session. This is the second time we've had you folks. We love highlighting our customers and the things that they're doing. And we'd love to do it with you guys again and with our other customers. You know, it's a really great way to put some life to, you know, the value that we try to provide in the marketplace. You know, it's by highlighting the great stories of what our customers can do with it. So we will see everyone next time. Hope everyone is healthy, continuing to stay somewhat socially distant and getting vaccinated, all these wonderful things that are now happening, and hopefully enjoying some of the good weather. So we will see you next week with another webinar. So check your inbox for that as well. And thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Beeswax, for hosting us. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks for being here.